At the end of the 1950s, as mass media was expanding and a rising number of households were getting televisions, the Vatican also had to join in the fun. In 1959, Pope John XXIII instituted the Vatican's film library.
Tutto il materiale viene dalle donazioni.
All material is donated, so there was no systematic collection. Rather, at different times, material was given to the Holy Father, and he rightly put it in the archive, because it was impossible to keep it all in the pontifical apartment. The institution of the film library coincided with the Second Vatican Council, also called for by John XXIII. As media was expanding and the global church was more readily available, Italian media was able to film much of the council.
Il Concilio Vaticano II è stato un
The
evento.
Second Vatican Council was an immediate event because it was being filmed. The people were expectantly waiting. They wanted to see what happened, what the council did. The church was transforming. It was becoming closer to how it is now in modern times. John XXIII felt the need to bring the church closer than it was. Yet the archives maintained inside today's film library date back much further than the late 1950s. The first movie on hand is from 1896, when Pope Leo XIII was recorded walking around the Vatican gardens to prove he was in good health. From there, media expanded, and it became somewhat normal to video record the Pope. One pontiff in particular took to the screen.
Siamo nel 42, un'epoca.
We're in 1942, an age in which people can't come to Rome to see the Pope. So, as film circulated during the war, this is a gift Pope Pius XII gives the world. It was for the faithful to be able to see the Pope, to see how he spent his day. For 8 months, the cameras were inside the Vatican. They followed the Holy Father, recording the audiences, his free time, and everything in between. It was to give him a more human image, bringing the faithful closer to the pontificate. Some of these papal images contributed to the around 8,000 titles and films held by the Vatican. Many others were donations. Each film is in various formats, including magnetic and digital. Beyond Catholic films and documentaries, there are a plethora of movies unrelated to the Church.
Noi abbiamo delle immagini sui bombardamenti.
We have images of the bombings in Japan during the war. There's an image by missionary fathers of the 50s of the population they've joined. Nothing had ever been filmed by anyone, so they're anthropologically very important images. The archive also contains high-class cinematography. We have one of Ben-Hur's originals. We have the trilogy of The Lord of the Rings. So there are all those films that have a spiritual role to transcend humanity. These ancient reels and many more are preserved in an air-conditioned room between 57.2 and 64.4 degrees Fahrenheit, with 33% humidity. For some of the older films, there's also a machine that cleans the reels and preserves their elasticity with a special liquid, making sure they can be shown again at any time. Many of the original old projectors remain, even if they are not used as often with the continued digitalization of film. The restructuring of the building to conserve each of the film reels was in the late 80s, early 90s. Meanwhile, the movie theater was remodeled in 2005. There are 54 new cushioned chairs, replacing the previous wooden ones, and new speakers lining the walls to create more of a theater atmosphere. Currently, there's a steady flow of people who both show movies or documentaries and those who attend. Viewers are often made up by members of the Vatican Curia, the diplomatic corps, students, or even the Pope himself.
Giovanni Paolo II, che era un appassionato di
John
cinema.
Paul II was passionate about cinema, so despite his many commitments, he was able to dedicate small amounts of time to film. Now, it's a little complicated. I'm not saying the Pope's workload has increased, but it grants less and less space for the Pope to stop 2 or 3 hours, which can be a lot. Yet documentaries and films are continuously shown in this unique Vatican theater, which also produces works themselves. They're currently working on a special documentary for their 60th anniversary since the opening of the film library. They hope to show it also in this room. Maybe the showing will coincide with a surprise visit by a man in white who lives in the building just next door, Pope Francis.